My name is Jimena Hernandez, and my global issue is societal pressures on women to conform. My works chosen is Persepolis and The Handmaid's Tale. So I wanted to talk about a global issue that has persisted across time, culture, and societies, and that is the pressure for women to conform. Women have long been subjected to expectations about how they should behave, dress, think. The expectations that limit their choices and suppress their individuality, and this only reinforces systems of control thrusted upon them. These pressures are often disguised or justified as tradition, morality, or even protection. But they serve the same purpose, and that is to strip women of their autonomy. Literature is a powerful tool in exposing and analyzing these pressures. Two works that bring this issue into light is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood and Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. While one is a book that is speculative fiction, meaning that it theorizes about possible futures, it is a dystopian book, and dystopian books focuses on how a small group has made things worse for others and how society can set themselves onto a path of destruction. The author Margaret Atwood had a self-imposed rule that she would not use any event or practice that had not already happened in human history. So, while The Handmaid's Tale is fiction, both The Handmaid's Tale and Persepolis explore on how women are forced into submission by political and religious ideologies, because in Persepolis, it is during the Iranian Revolution where women are forced to dress modestly and wear the veil, and she is also under a strict regime, but the difference is one is fiction and one is based on a reality, one is a memoir. So through these stories, we see the ways in which societal expectations shape women's life, not just in fiction, but, as I said, in reality. So in The Handmaid's Tale, Atwood presents a world where women are reduced merely for their reproductive functions. The Republic of Gilead enforces gender rules, stripping women from their rights, basically all their rights, and controlling every aspect of their existence. Handmaids like our protagonist, Offred, are valued only for their ability to bear children, because at that time it was extremely rare for a woman to be fertile, and they must dress modestly in red robes, remain silent, bow their heads while speaking to other people, and just follow these strict rules that have been dictated by men. I think one of the most chilling aspects of this novel is how oppression becomes normalized. Aunt Lydia tells the handmaids, "Ordinary is what you are used to. This may not seem ordinary to you now, but after a time, it will become ordinary." And this quote reflects on how societal pressures slowly shapes women's perceptions of how their own oppression. So it shapes women's perceptions of their own oppression. When certain expectations are reinforced repeatedly, they become a part of their routine, of their daily life. It becomes unquestioned and accepted. Women in Gilead are told that they are safer, they're more protected, and even should feel honored in their new roles. But in reality, they're just imprisoned in this system designed to control them. I even remember that in a part of the book, a man also says how before these rules everywhere used to be so vulgar, so violent, and they should feel lucky that these rules are there to protect women from danger and from harm. The novel also explores the dangerous idea that women are responsible for their own suffering. In a particular scene, Aunt Helena leads a group of women in blaming a rape victim for what happened to her. Aunt Helena says to basically blame somebody, and this group tells a woman, her fault, her fault, her fault. We chant in unison. So this illustrates how societal pressure not only comes from men, but are often reinforced by women who have internalized these expectations, who have basically justified what is being done to them and have accepted that they're in the situation and they're going to give it their all and follow the rules. And women are being taught to police each other, reinforcing the same standards that oppress them. And in Persepolis, it shows how these issues play out in real life. Marjane Satrapi's memoir recounts her experiences growing up in Iran during and after the Islamic Revolution. One of the most striking aspects of her story is how quickly women's freedom were taken away. Because before the revolution, women in Iran had the right to choose how they dressed, what they did, and just basically how they lived. But after the rise of the new regime, they were forced to wear the veil, go to segregated schools, and were subjected to strict gender roles, which another aspect of it was to further their education. It was quite difficult for women to actually get the opportunity to do that. And Marjane recounts how her mother was harassed for not wearing the veil and how she was slut-shamed. And it was basically how women's clothing became a battleground for control. She describes her own struggle with these expectations, questioning, are my trousers long enough? Is my veil in place? Can my makeup be seen? Are they going to whip me? And she said that they no longer would ask herself, where is my freedom of thought? Where is my freedom of speech? My life, is it livable? What's going on in the political prisons? Because the regime understood that once a person like her starts leaving her house while asking herself these questions, they were no longer asking themselves other questions like, is she happy, and what is she going to do to break these rules? And this internal dialogue highlights how societal pressures seep into a woman's daily lives, forcing them to constantly police themselves to avoid punishment or judgment. And the fear of not conforming becomes a powerful tool of control for the government, and the government realized that. One of the most disturbing reality is that Satrapi exposes how deeply ingrained these systems have become. In Persepolis, it mentions how if a virgin is killed or sentenced to death, she must first be raped so she doesn't die pure. And it's just a horrifying practice that shows the lengths to which societies will go to regulate women's body. Even in death, women have to conform, and women have to follow expectations. So Atwood's dystopian vision and Satrapi's real-life expectations may seem worlds apart, but they only highlight the same fundamental truth that women are constantly pressured to conform to societal standards, whether it's through law, religious mandates, or cultural expectations. These pressures are explored in these texts are not confined to the past or to distant countries, but around the world today. Women face the same restrictions with clothing, behavior, and roles in society. In some places, women are still required by law to dress a certain way. And in others, some are expected to prioritize family over their own personal ambitions or even goals. And even so-called progressive societies, women still face immense pressure to meet beauty standards and to be agreeable and to fit into these predefined roles. And the impact of this conformity on mental health is that Offred and Marjane both struggle with their sense of self in a world that tries to define them. Offred reflects on how she used to view her body as her own, but now doesn't. She says, I used to think my body as an instrument of pleasure or a means of transportation or an implement for my accomplishment of my will. But in Gilead, her body is no longer hers, and it's no longer hers to think of as her property. It belongs to the state, to the men who control her fate and tell her where to go and what to do. So similarly, Marjane struggles with her identity, and as she tries to balance her personal beliefs and the expectations being imposed on her. She is told to be modest, to conform, and to lower her voice, but she resists and she refuses to accept this life dictated by others, but it comes with so many obstacles and so many things she has to surpass. And this quote kind of stuck with me from The Handmaid's Tale. A rat in a maze is free to go anywhere as long as it stays in the maze. This quote reminds us that the superficial freedoms are not real freedoms if women are given choices, but only those choices are within a narrow framework defined by society. Then that means that women are not truly free because these options are predefined and they're not real option. It's only an illusion. So societal pressures on women to conform are not just personal struggles, they are global issues with real consequences. So through The Handmaid's Tale and Persepolis, we see how these pressures manifest and how they shape these women's lives, and how they must be resisted. So that's why I chose these two novels, because they represent how truly this global issue impacts more deeply than we can imagine.